Bismillah wa salatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. Inshallah, today, generally, of course, before Ramadan, we've had Saturdays, we spoke on specific topics. But inshallah, throughout Ramadan, we'll have again miscellaneous topics relevant to the month of Ramadan. It'll be, inshallah, just a little more longer than usual, than our usual after the Fajr talk. And then after that, inshallah, everyone can get busy, inshallah, with their individual ibadah. Whoever wants to participate, they're more than welcome to. Whoever wants to, inshallah, perform their own individual ibadah, you are more than welcome to do that as well, inshallah. In the month of Ramadan, we generally speak a lot about change, right? In the month of Ramadan, we speak about change in specific that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that when the month of Ramadan comes, that the gates of Jannah are opened. The ulama mentioned that the winds of Jannah, which are not obviously physically, they're not physically felt, but they blow by the mercy of Allah Ta'ala, as the Messenger of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said in another hadith, Inna lillahi nafahat, that Allah Ta'ala has winds that blow. These winds blow, they have an aroma of mercy which come upon the hearts of the believers. They call people towards good. And that is what causes this amazing environment in the month of Ramadan, which pushes people to do good, which pushes people to change, right? To change. Now, to understand change though, what I want to speak to you, myself, about is what is it that causes the human being to act the way the human being acts? Why does the human being do good? Why does the human being choose to do evil? What is the inner construct of the human being which drives the human being to act upon certain things? We go back to the creation, for example, of Adam alayhi salatu wasalam, and we learn by the creation of Adam alayhi salatu wasalam that the human being is not just a physical body. He's not just a specimen of biology. The human being has a metaphysical, a spiritual side, a side which can't necessarily be touched or tasted or smelled, can't be seen. But Allah Ta'ala tells us of that. When Allah Ta'ala in several different ayat tells us of the creation of Adam alayhi salatu wasalam and the phases that he went through. First he was, dirt and water, and that was mixed together. Then it softened and it became moist. Then from there on it became a little more strong. After which it was able that it could be made into something. Then Allah Ta'ala caused a wind to blow. It dried that figure. And then Allah Ta'ala blowed the ruh and the soul into that creation. And that's how Adam alayhi salatu wasalam came to being. So the life form is the ruh. The body is what it is, like the ulama mentioned to be. It is the polity, the civilians, right? The king is the ruh. The soul is what governs the body, right? This is what the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us. And this is not what any scientist will tell you. This is not what any psychologist will tell you. This is not what any doctor will tell you. Why? Because this is not their realm of study. This is where the profession of nubuwah comes into play. When you have the degree of nubuwah, when you're a nabi, this is what the nabis will tell you, the anbiya alayhimu salatu wasalam. So they tell us of this, and they tell us of the nature of this. And what do we know of it? Even that we know very less. That's why the point of what we're going to talk about today is not to get to the bottom of what the ruh is, but rather the benefits of knowing what the ruh is like. Where do we see its manifestations in our action and in our behavior? What do we target from this metaphysical body so that we can change ourselves? So starting off to speak about what is this ruh, what is this soul? Now there are many constructs, there are many approaches to it. The ulama have spoken about it in many different ways, and the fact of the matter is that each faculty could be spoken about in detail, but of course we just want a summarized understanding of it so then we can move on to what is more relative to us. You have four main parts of it. You have the nafs, you have the aql, you have the ruh, and you have the qalb. Now remember one thing, when we're translating these into the English language, don't take the translations to be what they literally are, right? Because the ulama have defined them, the Quran and the Sunnah itself has defined it, and the ulama have given it their certain terms. Sometimes they're synonymous, sometimes they mean the same thing, sometimes they don't mean the same thing, right? So going first to be of the qalb, it's translated to be as the heart. It's not the pumping blood heart, it's not the beating heart, but it's a metaphysical heart that you, again, can't touch, you can't see. Where is it even that exactly in the body? We don't know. We don't know exactly where it is. But we know its action, we know what it does. And it's very important to know what the qalb does. Because upon knowing that, then we will know how our actions are affected by this. And that how it's not just your biology, nor is it your psyche which is deciding what you do. Rather, there's something called a heart. Right? And the Messenger of Allah said, there is a limb in the body. That limb, if it's rectified, then the rest of the body is rectified. If that limb is rectified, the rest of the body is rectified. If that limb is corrupted, then the rest of it is corrupted. Ala wa hiya al-qalb. And that is the heart. That is the heart. So this is the benefit of knowing what the heart is. The heart is the receptacle. So the nafs and the ruh and the aql, the roles that they play, all will reflect on the heart, on the qalb. So the heart is the receptacle. It receives, either light, it's enlightened and illuminated, or either it's darkened. That's the heart. That's the role of the heart. You have the nafs, right? And the nafs, although generally we understand it in a negative connotation, it's not necessarily negative, right? We all have a nafs. Everyone has a nafs. It's a part of you. You can't take it out of you, right? You can tame it. The nafs is either tamed or it's either left wild. The nafs is the part of the body which has inclinations. It has good inclinations, it has bad inclinations, right? It has mere inclinations. That's why we won't necessarily define it to be bad, but it has states. It can become bad. It can become very good as well. So the nafs, and it has 3 states, and we'll mention that after. But again, its job is what? It has inclinations, mainly 2 powers. Again, we don't want to go into too much detail, but it has a quwwa ghadabiyya, a quwwa shahawiyya, a sense of desire, or a sense of aggressiveness, right? A sense of protection, survival, right? These are the faculties of the nafs. And then you have the aql, it's the intellect, right? The aql is a part of the qalb. It's in the qalb, right? Is the aql in the mind? Is it in the brain? Again, exactly we don't know. But the ulama generally mention that it's in the qalb, it's in the heart, but its light sheds on the rest of the body. What is its job? It learns, it accepts reasoning, right? It accepts knowledge. Right? That's the job of the aql. Then you have the ruh. Right? We mentioned that the ruh is, and again these words can be synonymously used, but the ruh is, number 1, your life support. It's your life spirit. And at the same time, it is something which came from Allah Ta'ala directly, which makes us different, which makes us very different from other beings. Right? The ruh of the animals is very different, the ruh of the angels is very different, and the ruh of the human being is very different. What makes the human being so significant is that he has these other faculties like the nafs, which has desire, and it has desire inclining to the dunya. It has desire inclining to the dunya. That's the part of the dirt and the water that came together and pushes us towards the ground. But then what pushes us to the sky is the ruh. It's the light, it's the soul, right? That came from Allah Ta'ala, which will live forever. This body may perish. It may perish in the ground, right? Allah Ta'ala will again build it. It will be resurrected on the day of resurrection. But the ruh is what lives forever. A poet, he says that وَالْرُوحُ عِنْدَ رَبِّ الْعَرْشِ مَبْدَأُهُ وَالتُّرْبُ وَالْمَاءُ أَصْلٌ لِلَّحْمِ وَالْبَدَنِ. That the ruh comes from the Lord of the throne, and that's where its start is. And as for the body, its origin is from the dirt, and it's from the water. وَهَكَذَا أَلَّفَ الرَّحْمَنُ بَيْنَهُمَا لِيَصْلُحَ لقبول النعم والمنن لقبول العهد والمنن. And that this is how Allah Ta'ala put together the human being, the Rahman put together between these 2 faculties, so that it could accept the message and that it could accept the blessings. Now this is a brief overview of these metaphysical faculties. Now what is its network with the physical body? How does that metaphysical body, we don't see it, we don't touch it, we can't necessarily see where it is. How does it connect with this body? Through reasoning and through inclinations. Like we mentioned earlier, the nafs has an appetite, it has inclinations. The aql has reasoning, right? These two things will be main factors in what later on will be human action. Human action. So that's the network. Now after understanding that, then you can try to move on to now what is human action. Human action then is of two types. You have physical action and you have metaphysical action. Physical action is the action of your body. The metaphysical action is the action of your heart. Again, the heart reflects everything else, right? So the heart gets khawatir, what's known as khawatir. Khawatir are inspirations. Those inspirations can be given again by either the ego, the nafs, or it can be given by the aql, or it can be given by the waswasa, the whispering of the shayateen. It can be given by the presence of the angels. It can be given by Allah Ta'ala. Allah Ta'ala can place nur in the heart, by which that will cause intention. And intention is the beginning of every action. Intention is the beginning of every action. Now you have a conflict going on though. There's a conflict in the heart, which is between the ego and the aql. The aql says follow reason. The aql says listen to the message. The aql says listen to what Allah Ta'ala has to say. But the ego says follow your desire. Follow your desire. And that's then where the training comes in of Ramadan. Right? That's where then you come in to fight that desire. Right? So how do you channel the nafs? By mukhalafa, by going against it. Everything the nafs wants you to do, the nafs wants you to eat, Allah Ta'ala told you what's better for you. And this is what's meant by Allah Ta'ala wants ease for you. Allah Ta'ala wants ease for you. It doesn't mean fasting is difficult. Fasting is very difficult. No one's going to say it's easy. When going to work, right, praying taraweeh, none of it's easy. But the overall ease that it brings, the peace that it brings to a human being's life, there's no recompense for that. Which is to overcome the ego and to bring peace to the soul. When the ego is overcome, there are three stages of the ego. The first, when it overcomes the aql. The first, when it overcomes the aql. And then that mind, the intellect, everything then is affected by that. That's known as al-nafs al-ammarah bis-su. It commands towards evil. Then after you start to fight with it, you start to tell it, no, listen to the command of Allah. You start to go against it. So then it becomes a critical nafs. Allah Ta'ala mentions these categories in the Quran, al-nafs al-lawwama. It becomes a critical nafs, right? Then after that, when the aql and the nur and the light of the aql and the ruh, which is quenched by the dhikr of Allah Ta'ala, overcomes the ego and the nafs, then you have nafs mutma'inna, right? The subservient nafs. Now the nafs leaves the ropes in the hands of the aql, that now you navigate the vehicle. Now you navigate the vehicle. And so then the qalb, which is again we mentioned in the beginning, the receptacle, it receives effect either by the nafs or either by the aql, then it will be navigated according to that, right? And then so you'll get inspiration. After the inspiration you have intention. After the intention you have action. You have action. And that action, depending on what's going on inside, it will be good or it will be evil, right? It will be good, it will be evil. Why is it important to contemplate upon these things? Because the Messenger of Allah told us what the hadith we mentioned in the beginning, that there's a limb in the body, that's the root of everything. It's the heart which is the root of everything, right? So you have two forms of study of human action. One is the exterior action known as fiqh, fiqh, law, right? What should you be doing externally? Then you have tasawwuf. This is the study of the heart. The study of the heart, the conditions of the heart. What should the heart be so that the rest of the body and everything, which is the polity in the civilians, they all can be subservient to the king, which is supposed to be the qalb and the pure heart. And this is how change comes. This is how change comes. So how are these four faculties channeled? There's a lot of again discussion on how that can happen, but through mainly two ways: inkishaf, which is introspection, contemplation, tafakkur, thinking, taking time out and thinking, giving time to think about these things, teaching yourself, all these different types of things. And then these four channels are channeled in different ways, right? So the aql wants ta'aleem, the aql wants knowledge, the nafs wants mukhalafa, go against it. The ruh wants dhikr, recitation of Quran. The ruh wants recitation of Quran and all these different types of things, right? And so you have these different ways of channeling this, and then that's how you bring change. That's what affects change. then your morality changes. After you do introspection, inkishaf, you think, then you do what's known as tarbiyah, right? You do tahdheeb, you purify, you filter, you make moralities according to what you're supposed to do. So what you believe in, then you act upon them. And that's how, a bit of the ontology of the human being, a bit of how we work inside from an Islamic perspective. We ask Allah Ta'ala that He give us the capability to understand this for our benefit. The Messenger of Allah Ta'ala told us that the biggest jihad is the jihad of the nafs. When some of the companions were coming back from battle, he told them, "Raja'tum min al-jihad al-asghar ila al-jihad al-akbar." That you have returned from the small form of jihad to the greater form of jihad. To bring change in your life, you have to go through great struggle. That's the reality of it, right? You have to go through great struggle. We ask Allah Ta'ala that He give us tawfiq, understanding of this, and so that we can make this practically happen in the month of Ramadan. Channel these channels, and we can try to bring nur into our life, teach ourselves, change our habits, actually practically bring the fasting, into our minds, make them present. When people talk ill to us, the Messenger of Allah Ta'ala said, what? Say you are fasting. These type of qualities, they have to be inculcated in the month of Ramadan. The Salaf say, if you can successfully change in the month of Ramadan, you will change the rest of your year. But if you cannot change in the month of Ramadan, then what's the hope that you'll change after it? May Allah Ta'ala give us tawfiq to do so. Jazakumullah khairan for listening and for sitting. May Allah Ta'ala give us tawfiq. May Allah Ta'ala forgive us and accept from us our actions in the month of Ramadan.